Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa GUMBS, the Executive Managing Editor of Black Enterprise. And today we're chatting with two amazing women who have created a new lifestyle brand that celebrates Black and Brown moms. One stars on ABC's Mixed Dish. The other is the Executive Vice President and General Manager of Kevin Hart's company, Laugh Out Loud. And now together, they're the co-founders of Sugaberry. So please allow me to introduce actress and producer Tika Sumpter and award-winning media executive Thai Randolph.
Hello.
Thank you, ladies, both for being here today. How you doing?
Good. It was like deep breath. Yeah, I think we're all, the human race is all pushing forward as we always do. So we have our health, and we're on a call interview with you, so we're good.
Well, Tika, I want to start with you because Sugaberry came out of your idea from your experiences during your first pregnancy 4 years ago. So what was that experience like for you?
Well, when I was pregnant, it was like almost 3.5 years ago. I was just searching for community. I was searching for people who looked like me, people who looked like possibly how my baby was going to look, people who were going through things that I was going through, whether it was fibroids, or I didn't even know I had fibroids until I was pregnant, like that they actually reacted and started growing. And I just felt like there was a disparity within the joy of motherhood. And it felt like it was only queued up for a certain group of people. And when I looked at it and looked at the internet, and I would literally Google like Black moms, and it was just like death, doom, destruction. You're going to die. You're not going to make it. You're divorced. You're this. And I'm like, Jesus, like who wants a kid if you're me? And then on the other side, it was like, I just Googled like motherhood, and white moms and other moms came up, and they were like, and talking about their vaginas and their vulvas and like all the good things. And I was like, wait, they get to do both? Like they get to talk about complications, but also joy. And also what's the best bag to grab, like they get all this, array of choices. And I just felt like, when I was searching, I had to search for us, like search. And I just thought, why isn't this happening? Am I crazy? Why isn't there a space where it's all in one spot? And, it's kind of the epicenter, for Black and brown motherhood. And so then I brought this idea to Ty to see if I was crazy. And that's how, I just brought it to her to actually bounce it off of her to see, if this was a good idea or not. And then I can take over the story.
I want to know if you had the same experience because you're also a mom.
Yeah, it was really, so as Tika was saying, a mutual friend of ours introduced us she knew I was in the space in media and digital media in particular, and had experiences on the agency side and, with Facebook. And so she said, hey, you two should talk, right? And you could give her some good counsel on the business idea. So, I went with my exec hat on, ready to tell her, be careful about, the digital media space in particular, because it could be, while there's a ton of opportunity and lower barriers to entry, can be particularly challenging to scale content editorial driven businesses in this marketplace. And so, I thought I was going to give her some cautionary tales and some things to watch out for, but I ended up completely wrapped up in what she was just describing, because I thought, oh my God, like I would be your first customer. And I think that's the first thing I said to her after she explained, what she was envisioning. And her daughter, Ella, is 3. My son, Niall, is 2. We both got pregnant at the same age. And so our experience was lots of parallels, even though she was in front of the camera and I was behind the camera. I think we both, fashion ourselves careerist, right? And didn't necessarily think that we should have to choose, and found ourselves at an intersection in our, mid to late 30s. But what I thought would have been this magical, sort of butterflies flying around experience, for me, ended up being a tougher road. I ended up having some real fertility challenges. And when I was at fertility clinics, I just remember it feeling like such a lonely space because they were packed, but just not packed with people who look like me. And it wasn't an admission I felt comfortable making at that time because it felt like a very sort of like singular experience. And then even when miraculously, after several failed attempts, via other means was able to naturally conceive my son, even then, when it's like, okay, let the fun begin, I found myself, as she described, mining other people's spaces for information and content, catering to me and the child that I was going to have. Even after he got here, how difficult is it to find, even books about, and featuring little Black children, not saying accept your Blackness, but just doing awesome things and being amazing little kids.
Being kids.
Right,
Being
that's
kids.
all. And so what she was describing was my experience. And I think as we connected, not just on the business idea, but the heart of the idea, we thought, okay, we aren't the only women having this experience. And as she pointed out, we also deserve joy and light and happiness. So the founding principle of Sugaberry that was, that motherhood for Black and brown moms is something that should be enjoyed, not just endured. And so we really sought out to change the narrative.
So tell us what Sugaberry currently offers.
Right. So Sugaberry right now offers, we have kind of like it's about mama, mini, it's about being well, it's about living your best life. So right now we offer articles and listicles of whether it's what coloring books to get to how to, your COVID money that the stimulus package, what you got, or how to apply for unemployment, or we just have, it's all about resources. So resources, but also highlighting the goodness about us, right? And we launched literally the day before the quarantine stay-at-home order happened. So we launched The Sugar, which is our podcast, right? So we launched both of these together, Sugar and the Sugaberry, to since we were not able to get out and really do our digital work, that we had all these grand plans and then they were smashed. And then we were like, well, we listened, was that God talking to us? Because this might be the devil, but actually, in all fairness, it's like we pulled it off, and we've got so many inbounds, business wise, of like people who want to coexist with Sugaberry and be part of it. So, and see that this is a viable space. So, we worked with what we had, like our parents always did. They made $1 out of 15 cents. And, through The Sugar, which is our voices and people connecting with our stories, and like resources from mental health to whether it's energy or, talking to Vivica Fox about her journey of saying, I'm not going to be a mom,
right.
And
discussion with Rachel Webb about egg freezing, like just a broader spectrum to showcase what the experience of Black motherhood and sisterhood could be, right? Tika often talks about how this is also for the undecideds and the tryings and expectings. And I always say, we don't want this to feel like an exclusive club that you have to have a baby to get into, because I was at a point, in my journey where I really had to think about if this was possible. And I had reached the point of realizing motherhood, while possible for me, would not happen the way that I had envisioned initially that it would happen. And even though, again, that ended up being my pathway, there are all sorts of pathways to and around. And so what we found is that the feedback from the community has just been so much about the sisterhood and just being allowed to take up space in this way.
We have a lot of plans coming once we're out of here.
Yeah, we're going to get to the big plans. But I want to talk about the business of that, because Ty, you've been recognized by Black Enterprise before as one of the leading women in advertising and marketing.
Thank you, guys.
Your whole career, pretty much, you've been at the intersection of content and commerce. And so I want to talk about the long-term plan for Sugaberry, because I know that you started with media, but that media is just the beginning. And also the audience that you're talking to is a really big consumer market.
Thanks for saying that. I mean, so we connected around this sort of shared passion and shared experience, but what we quickly found, and what validated our decision to get into this business, is it wasn't just, it wasn't just a passion point. There was a real business opportunity here. It's shocking how undervalued the Black consumer mom target is, the Black consumer mom segment is in the marketplace. And as we were doing more research, it was just wild, the influence and the purchasing power that we wield. I think it's by next year, the sort of like aggregate Black consumer buying power is estimated to top $1.2 trillion. The Black consumer mom is the gatekeeper to that huge, consumer spending power. And we've shown again and again, be it with, Girls Trip or Red Table Talks, not just our ability to be able to move the needle from a media perspective, but to have such amazing general market influence and impact. Yet, when you look at the advertising dollars that are earmarked, for our community, it's always an afterthought, because the assumption is often, I believe, well, what other options do they have, right? I think there are a lot of parallels to how our dollars are looked at many times the way that our votes are, right? Where you just assume that that's going to happen. And one of the things when we're talking to our initial brand partners and advertisers is that we want to make sure that there's an authentic way in. You need to earn your way into this community and really handle them or us with care. And when you do, there are case studies about how that pays off in dividends, right? Not just within the African American community, but in the broader general market. So, for us, editorial is a really important resource that we provide for the community. We also look at it as a marketing tool. And what we're getting through the community is this immediate feedback loop. We're learning what mom's pain points are, what her passion points are, and we really want to leverage that to design really unique experiences, really interesting and tailored and thoughtful consumer products that go from, as Tika mentioned, just an invitation to live a sweeter life with editorial focused on categories like be well, see the world, open your heart. We wanted our content to feel very active and invitational, but then we want to translate the insights and what the community says to these experiences and products that actually give you the tools, right, to live a sweeter life. So that's the broad vision for Sugaberry.
You guys have mentioned sisterhood a couple of times, and Tika, you mentioned that you reached out to Thai because she was the expert in this space, that you guys were connected. You weren't even friends before this, but you are clearly friends now. And so I want you to talk about why you decided to go into business with each other. Because like finding your tribe is one thing, but like finding someone that you can be in business with is a whole different level.
It's crazy because when I thought about this, right? Listen, you have these ideas, right, of like what you see a company as, but when you talk to somebody else who uses the other side of their brain, and it expands what your first idea actually was. And I feel like she expanded in my mind what it could actually be, and that we can execute it. I am the dreamer. We can do this. I'm positive. I'm like, yes, like, let's do it. And she's very like pragmatic. She's very thoughtful, and I'm thoughtful too, but she knows the business and marketing. Like, that's just her. Like, she can talk tables around, I think, any person. She asks the questions. People are always like, oh yeah, that was a good question. Like, she kind of sometimes throws people off. Like, she's very smart. So I just feel grateful that that our mutual friend put us together. We found each other and we connected on a heart level. But like, you really do need that other, because with me, I feel like just me, this business would not be a business. It would be just a blog. And I'd just be kind of throwing money into it. You know what I mean? And I want a real business, and I want women to feel really taken care of, and the epicenter to come from motherhood, just like every other magazine or platform gets to be that thing. So she's just super intelligent. And I was like, well, would you want to do it? Would you want to do this? And so I feel like you always, I always listen to How I Built This or things like that podcast. And a lot of the times there are these these co-founder partners.
Yeah.
And I see why, because somebody might be stronger in one point and then even stronger on the other side. So I feel like we really we complement each other. We complement.
Yes. And I love what you said about sort of expanding your vision, because I think it's so important that when you're looking for a business partner, or if you're agreeing to partner with someone, that you really do look for someone to complement and to sort of make up for, to complement your strengths, but to also make up for the areas where you may need to develop, because then you really get sort of a 360 view, right? You're looking out for not just everything that could go wrong, but you're looking out for all the opportunities in the business. And one of the things that attracted, me to Tika, especially in this town, especially in Hollywood, when you have lots of higher profile talent launching initiatives, and it's really sort of the same, with the venture that, that I work on with Kevin, looking for someone with amazing work ethic, right? Like Tika, it's not just say, oh, let me put my name on it. She's been from the ground up so meticulous and intentional about every component, from the branding to the naming to the editorial to what happens on social media. It really is. And I think that to build really good scalable products in any area, you need that attention to detail and that insistence on not necessarily perfection, but value, right? Like value exchange at every handoff, every touch point with the consumer, every touch point with the brand. And, one story I often tell, which is where, when you see sort of that balance of those complements working out. So we decided to partner. We were thinking about a name. And, me, just the way I started immediately with very functional, but cute, right? Like naming conventions, like Mother May I. And it was very much focused on like, we're giving, women permission and telling Black moms that they don't need to ask, you get a space. And she came back, one of her ideas was Sugaberry. And I thought, that's so cute. But I think I said something like, what the hell does it mean? Like, where did it come from? And she said, it was inspired by the Tupac lyric, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. But the idea that like, it should just be sweet, right? Like no one asked, and not to disparage any of these others, what Hello Giggles means or Goop, or it just gets to be sweet.
Exactly. What does Goop mean?
Nothing. It's just a cool name, right? It's like Goop, cool, right? And nobody asks what it means. It's like they don't have to. It just is what it is, and it's a something lovely to go to, right? And so I'm like, why can't we just have a kind of name that is just, obviously it comes from something, but Sugaberry, like there's a sweetness to it. And so that's what I wanted to make sure that the invitation was for moms of color.
So this is really the definition of for us, by us. You guys created it. You are self-funding it. You have complete control of it. What is the leap to entrepreneurship been like for the two of you? I see big eyes.
For me, for anything I do, you have to, first of all, you have to love it. It can't just be, for me, I can't just be like, oh, like I know there's a business idea, but like, and I know we can make something from this, but like, it's too much work just to do it for money. Like it's way too much work. You're literally up at all hours of the night, freaking out that you're launching, and the website designer is not answering your call. Like it's just too much. It's so much stress that if you're not really into the thing, it ain't worth it, right? So that's step one: be into the thing, like seriously into it. And I think building a team, like if you can, whether it's with equity or with some sort of promise of something. I know I can't do something by myself. There's no possible way this could have happened just on me alone. So the team that Ty and I built around us of women who have played a part in really birthing this baby is huge. So, and I'm talking like asking people, like all I kept doing was asking people close to me, do you know somebody who I can bounce this idea off of? Do you know somebody who actually started or helped with this? And so one of our GM actually, Blair, she started at Hello Giggles. She was like employee number 2 or something like that. And so Black woman, just, you know, fantastic at what she does. And I was just asking people, anybody I could ask, you know, and then just kind of getting all these great people surrounding this idea that they actually believed in. They have to also believe in it too, you know,
especially at this stage, right?
Especially at this stage. It's easy to believe in something when you're worth $100 million, you know.
Exactly.
It's like when you're not. Well, do you believe in it now? And are you going to work just as hard? And that's how I feel like you build. And I feel like when we hire even more employees, it's like that idea of like, do you believe in this thing? Because I feel like you never have to worry about somebody who believes in the plan, you know? So yeah, that's entrepreneurship. Those are some leaps.
And I think, you know, it always helps to put yourself in the customer's role. So I think one of the, you know, there were a ton of things, of challenges, right? It was, you know, launching during COVID. We had again, right at the beginning of the pandemic. So we had no idea what the future was going to look like, or, you know, we were launching a podcast. People weren't in their cars as much. Was it going to impact listening? You know, there were so many things. Advertisers were, you know, restricting budget. So, you know, we really had to, there were lots of considerations going on at that time.
She's like,
like, you know it, but you know, it was interesting for us because that was really our guiding light. And the truth of the matter is, I feel like if you can focus on providing value, right, to your customer base, then you can monetize, but there has to first be the value exchange. And so, you know, sure, we've modeled the business out, sure, we've planned for multiple, you know, scenarios, but I think what our guiding principle is, what does this audience need right now? Now, it gives us a leg up that we subscribe to that audience, right? Like, we know ourselves as Black moms, though we're not representative, and that's a part of what this is about, of the entire, you know, we're not a monolith. But so even with the amazing team of, it just happens to be all women, you know, of color that we've assembled, it's so helpful to get their feedback. And when we're on, one of the most sort of refreshing moments during the week is when we have our editorial planning calls, because you remember the value that you're providing to this, you know, consumer. And even though we did a pretty much a 180 with focusing heavily on, you know, COVID content, that was the context that we were launching in. So moms are in their house, they're stuck with their kids in their house.
Right.
How do we all get through this together and stay true to the mission, which was to bring sweetness and joy and light? And so I think that insistence on the customer, and not think that you're programming to some imaginary audience, right? But these are real people, and what's the real value can you provide as your guiding principle, will help get you through some of the tougher spots.
So moms are at home with their kids. You guys are at home with your kids. You both already have careers.
Yeah.
You are now also entrepreneurs. And in quarantine, moms who already are everything anyway are really, really everything. Like, they're teacher and therapist and camp counselor and, you know, a million other things. So if women were already trying to figure out how do we do it all, how have the two of you managed to do it all over the last 3 months?
To not do it all. It ain't all gonna get done. It's just not. You know, it's like, I think what also Sugaberry and talking every week on the sugar has done was let me off the hook of, you know, it feels like a therapy session at times, because you're just like, I can't be all things all the time. You just can't. And if you hold yourself to that standard, it's gonna be exhausting for you. Yeah. And so I think that's the constant thing, is letting mothers off the hook, especially like Black and brown moms who already carry the weight of the world on their shoulders, you know, with their kids going outside and being afraid of them even going outside, even around what's happening in the world right now. So I would just say self-care, you know, Ella calls to me, and sometimes I'm like, I'm not coming. Your dad, thank God I have, you know, an amazing partner. And I'm like, you're just gonna have to take her, because I'm tired. And he gets it. He totally understands. He's like, I just don't know how you're doing all this right now. Yeah, even he says it. He's like, I couldn't do it. Like, I'd be like, well, we're gonna be eating bread. No, but like, he literally gives me applause all the time, because he's just like, you're just going at it. But you know, and then the great thing is though that, you know, Ella never sees me this much, you know, and she's just like, cannot believe I'm home so much. Like, she's just like, you're not going like away, like you're not going to a meeting, like downstairs you're going. I'm like, uh-huh. And so it's nice that in that way that I'm here for my daughter, but it's also nice that I have somebody else to kind of pick up the load when I'm just like, I can't do it anymore. So, and for those who don't have the extra help or whatever it is, it's like when the baby's down, don't try to clean your house. Don't try to do it anything. Just sit on the couch and do nothing and be okay. And don't try not to feel guilty. I think Dr. Imani said on the sugar, last week on Monday, she said something like, guilt is a useless emotion in that sense, in that context. It's like, it's not going to do anything for you at that point. So just put it down and just watch Housewives.
Yes.
So yeah, let yourself.
You want to chime in because you know you've been in Zoom meetings all day today. You still have a day job that's going full speed ahead, a household,
100%. You know, it's funny. It takes a village, right? And it doesn't need to be perfect, right? Like, and when it takes a village, if you have a partner at home, but you just also ask for help. It's something that I personally I struggle with, right? I'm critically uncomfortable saying tap in at times. And when we were launching, this is a real story, I got really sick right at the beginning of the pandemic. Now, I don't know if it was COVID or not, because testing was super difficult at the time, but literally the site was going up the next day. I think our first podcast was launching a couple days later. And, or maybe it had just launched and we were up late in the night and I had this bad upper respiratory thing. I was on antibiotics, steroids, a nebulizer. It was intense. And it was like, and this was launch day. And I remember saying at like 4 a.m, I text Tika and Blair and said, I got to tap out. I can't do it. Like, I just feel physically incapable of moving on. And the answer was, take care of yourself. Do we need to send you anything? We've got this. Like, having people in your life, particularly in business, that you could toss to in that way and have the confidence that it will things will be done is just an immense blessing. And I think
I don't know if we had the confidence, but we said, go ahead, girl, go get some sleep. Do you need anything?
You sounded really convincing, but you are an actress.
Good. It worked. The acting worked. Great.
But, just ask for help if you can get it when you need it. And what you can't get done, I mean, this Memorial Day weekend was going to be my working catch-up weekend because it was, I'm going to get everything done. And like Tika said, I think I had just binge-watched Housewives and called it a night. And that's what you need to recharge. And one of the things that to me is so fulfilling, and I hope our audiences feel this connection, recording the sugar every week is one of the most gratifying things. And a part of that is because we get to talk to other moms, other women, and it's all about how much can you love on Black women. Like, the theme is always let yourself off the hook. And every conversation is just dripping with grace and care. And it was just a way that until we launched that, I don't know if I had an appointment, right? Of course, you have your girlfriends and you have your therapist, but you don't have an appointment that you set every week just to be loved on by other women. And that to me fills me up so much and is so indulgent. And that's the type of experience that we want to extend to our entire community.
Well, ladies, I have enjoyed this conversation so much. Thank you for your love note to Black women. And thank you so much for sitting down with us today.